Equilibrium. It's a state where opposing forces are equal, if you will. So I've been thinking about that, and is in correlation to the Fender Strat, 1954, obviously the first Strat. You look at today's technology and everything that's happened with just everything, if you will. There's a few things that have managed to stay the same that work well: mouse traps and Strat tremolos. Of all the technology that's come and gone, the tremolo system on a Strat is primitive, if you will, but it's the whole concept is equilibrium, which means the strings and the springs both provide equal pull, and that's what keeps your guitar in tune. Scientifically, that should work. However, there are some variables, which predominantly I found to be in the nut. So what I've got here is a Squier Classic Vibe. The only thing I've changed is I put up I think a virtual solo DiMarzio in the bridge. And other than that, I just basically spent some time setting it up. It's got the stock tuners. They're not locking tuners. So I've kind of, over the years, I've never really had a guitar tech, if you will. I've just kind of learned to set up my own guitars. And I remember years ago in the 80s when I got my first Squier. Actually, I had an Ibanez Challenger Strat copy that was identical to a Strat, 77, I think. And I don't remember using the bar on that because my whole initial thinking was they will not stay in tune. So I just basically did away with the bar. And the same thing with my my first Squier Japanese that I got in '88. Same thing, I didn't really use the bar on it because it just seemed to throw it out of tune. And then I ended up playing a Strat Plus, which had a roller nut and locking tuners, and I was able to use the bar, and I thought, wow, this is amazing. And I kind of had this preconceived idea that the only way that you get a Strat to stay in tune with the bar is using locking tuners, or a roller nut, or both. And what I've discovered over the years is I own several Strats, and I've bought and sold a lot of Strats, and I've set up Strats for people, is that locking tuners usually are not the problem or the solution for a guitar that won't stay in tune. As a matter of fact, that very rarely seems to be the case. I would think there might be exceptions to that, but it's typically in the nut. So if you have your strings pulling and then the springs pulling equally as well on the other side, technically you should stay in tune. If your tuners aren't slipping, which most of the times they're not, even with a Squier, which is what this is. I'm going to demonstrate here. And most of the problem tends to be right here in the nut. There's some binding in the nut that happens when you put the tremolo down, bring it back up, it's out of tune. So I'm just going to demonstrate a little here. This is just like I said, a stock Classic Vibe, great guitar. So I can pretty much dive it down. yeah, that's kind of the idea. So here's just a little thing. Obviously, this is I found the 2-point trims tend to be they tend to be slightly smoother, if you will, but these work great. So what I do, it's all trial and error for me. I loosen the probably a turn and a half on the ones in the center, and a little bit, probably about a half a turn to 3/4 of a turn on the two outside ones. So that's basically allows the bridge to come up a little bit. And depending on what size strings you use, it's going to obviously change. But if you can see, I have about that much float. So, and on the back, I have 3 springs. And don't ask me why I started doing the 3 springs in diagonal, but it works for me. And so you can see how I've adjusted. And now obviously with the size strings you use, that will change everything. But here's what I'm shooting for. When I put a set of strings on, and I get these adjusted how I want, when I'm first floating a tremolo, I'm shooting for the I'm shooting for the G string to go a full step up. When I pull up the bar, I want to stop it out at G, or at A. I'm sorry. So I can float it that way. And that tends to be just the right thing for me. If I adjust this to where I can pull it up exactly a full step at the G. And I find by doing that, it pretty much puts me in a position where the guitar starts coming into shape. And obviously the biggest problem you have. So what I use chapstick, I use pencil lead, whatever. And there's times that I must admit that I will have to take. I'll take maybe a string. I have some little fret files, but you can take a guitar string that's just slight, close to the size of the slot that's going out of tune, and give it a few runs through there, and just kind of take a little edge off of that. And they will stay in tune really well. I have several Strats, and I do all of them the same way, and they all stay in tune really well. And this, I just thought I would demo this one because it's the least expensive Strat that I have, and it's just got the regular. It don't have a 2-point trim. It's got this, and so technically, if equilibrium will work, you just have to take away any obstacles that might not let it work, which most of the times it's the nut. I know you can lube here if you want. I really don't ever. But it's trial and error. Sometimes I'll put a set of strings on it, and I'll adjust a little bit. And I'll find that I need to adjust one of these a little bit more, or if I pull it up and one of the strings is still not right, I'll take a guitar string and just rub it through there a few times. One that's got some winding on it, just a little bit to keep it from binding. One other thing that I might point out here is, if you can see that on the big E, if you wind your string when you're putting your strings on, if your big string is at the very bottom of the post, it creates an angle up to the nut. And so what I want to do, I don't want that. So I want my strings to come as straight across to the nut as I can. So I'll keep the ending of the winding, I'll keep it closer to the top, if that makes sense. So there's no angle, which would also bind it. But if you do those things, you can pretty much set a Strat up to stay in tune as this one does. So I'm pretty much floating. Well, that's pretty much it. So, but anyway, equilibrium. It's the scientific way to get your tremolo straightened out on a Strat. Oh, one thing: if you do break a string while you're gigging, which I have, but not too often, it is going to throw. If you're floating your tremolo, it's going to throw everything out of whack. It does. So that's one thing you do have to, because it basically changes everything. Equilibrium is out the door at that point. So, well, I'll talk to y'all soon.